Chief Justice John Roberts can't pretend to be impartial anymore after a leaked memo revealed his true partisan colors. The latest tea on the Supreme Court is that Chief Justice Roberts is not the feeble voice of reason with the hyperpartisans on the bench. He's really been a wolf in sheep's clothing, leading the pack the entire time. It would be more surprising if the two faced Chief Justice hadn't made decimating the Voting Rights Act his chief career goal. But it is shocking how earnest Roberts is to sully the institution he presides over. It's important to mention that Roberts built his career on finding the legal framework to protect presidential power. The same goes for Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was on Ken Starr's investigative team as the far right sought to impeach then President Bill Clinton. According to a February 22nd memo sent by Roberts to the bench, the Chief Justice deliberately broke judicial norms. And he did so by instructing the Supreme Court to preemptively intervene in the three major cases involving Donald Trump and his allies. The directive he gave the bench was to defy the lower courts and move the goalposts in order to rule in favor of Donald Trump. Sounds totally blind justicey and not partisan or corrupt at all. It's also worth noting that at the time of this memo, the Supreme Court was hearing the Colorado case, which basically said, forget the 14th Amendment, let's keep Donald Trump on the ballot. In that February memo, which was leaked to the New York Times, the Chief Justice trashed the appellate court opinion that allowed the Washington, D.C. case against Donald Trump to proceed. He called the decision, quote, inadequate and poorly reasoned, and claimed that the judges, quote, failed to grapple with the most difficult questions altogether. In private discussions following the memo, Roberts called the lower court's logic circular. He also falsely interpreted the ruling, telling his benchmates, quote, as I read it, it says simply a former president can be prosecuted because he's being prosecuted. For Roberts, reading comprehension is hard. Roberts urged the 9 justices to take up the immunity question on appeal and provided his take on a favorable decision for Trump. Roberts wrote, quote, I think it likely that we will view the separation of powers analysis differently. In other words, let's find a way to put Trump above the law. Now, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinions for all 3 major cases last term that involved Donald Trump and his actions that resulted in the LARP on Washington. Those cases are Trump v. Anderson, which is the Colorado case, Fisher v. United States, which is the one that the feds are using to charge the LARPers on Washington, and Trump v. United States, which was the immunity case. Interestingly, Justice Samuel Alito was originally assigned to write the Fisher opinion, but Roberts demoted him after news came out about the Alito's flag problem. And this was just part 1 of the ongoing saga, which involved the Alitos flying an upside-down flag after the LARP on Washington. Now, Martha Ann Alito has had all summer to let her freak flags fly, so we'll see what happens next. As the justices discussed taking up the immunity case, the Federalist Society judges expressed concerns over taking it up last term and suggested that the court take it up next term, which begins in October. It was Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch who advocated for kicking the can down the road. But Roberts had one eager beaver in his corner. Justice Brett put me in, Coach Kavanaugh. Roberts also had the support of the 3 nonpartisan justices, Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who wanted to settle the matter. Of course, the Chief Justice had his own partisan and ideological agenda for speeding things up a bit. According to accounts told to the New York Times by unnamed sources, Roberts' partisan agenda became flagrant when the Chief Justice iced out the only non-compromised justices on the court. That, plus the fact that the Federalist Society judges broadened the scope of the question at hand in the immunity case, prompted Sonia Sotomayor to write her spicy dissent, warning, quote, with fear for our democracy, I dissent. Roberts has long professed his desire to keep the court separate from politics, but the Chief Justice is now responsible for politicizing the institution and for damaging the court's reputation for at least the next generation. Now, it's not surprising that the Chief Justice got the thumbs up from Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch for his immunity decision. While the bench was reviewing the first draft of the immunity decision, Justice Kavanaugh praised Roberts for writing, quote, an extraordinary opinion, later adding, quote, thank you again for your exceptional work. Justice Gorsuch followed up with more flattery, writing, quote, I join Brett in thanking you for your remarkable work. Unfortunately for the Chief Justice, the public reception of the immunity decision was one of condemnation. Many legal scholars expressed that the opinion was untethered from the law. Stephen McAllister, a law professor at the University of Kansas and a former law clerk to Justice Clarence Thomas, said, quote, "It's certainly not really tied to the Constitution." William Bott, a University of Chicago law professor and a former clerk to the Chief Justice, said, quote, "It's a strange, sprawling opinion." Now, the impact of that immunity ruling is just beginning to take its toll. While the DC case is picking up speed, more delays are certain as both parties have the ability to appeal Judge Chutkan's decision about immunity. And we know that Donald Trump will appeal her decisions to delay the case more. Chief Justice John Roberts gave him the framework to do so.